and welcome to episode number 6 of the Gentle Business Revolution podcast, the show where we talk about marketing your business by disrupting the current marketing paradigm. I'm Sarah Senecroce, the host on this show, and you know that you're in the right place if you are a heart-centered entrepreneur who is looking for a different, a better way to market your business, or you are an entrepreneur who is fed up, tired of the traditional marketing model, especially the online model, and are ready for a paradigm shift. In today's episode, we are talking about the P of pricing. If you haven't seen my mandala for conscious marketing, you can go to thegentlemarketingrevolution.com and you'll see the mandala there where I talk about the 7 Ps. And so today's episode is about the P of pricing and more specifically about selling with integrity or serving instead of selling. And today's episode is actually a republished conversation I had on this show last year in a Muse episode with Farnoosh Brock, the author of the book, The Serving Mindset, Stop Selling and Grow Your Business. And I thought it was just a perfect fit for the P of pricing because who says pricing says selling, and both of these things have to do with money. And we also address the idea of underpricing ourselves in this conversation, which is a big topic for heart-centered entrepreneurs whom I often hear saying, "Oh, I'm not doing it for the money. I'm just doing it to help," right? But in order to be able to serve our clients better, we actually need to put the oxygen mask on ourselves first and therefore build a sustainable business. Otherwise, we burn out. And that's exactly what happened to me a few years ago. I talked about my overgiving burnout previously. So I like how her book, Farnoosh's book, is structured around 5 key mindsets, which we'll go into during our conversation as well. So here's some more info on Farnoosh. Farnoosh Brock went from electrical engineer and rising leader at a Fortune 100 company to a business coach, speaker, and consultant. She has helped many entrepreneurs and businesses to use her mindset and framework of genuine serving to build deep trust, create meaningful relationships, and scalable profits. In addition to her latest book, The Serving Mindset, Stop Selling and Grow Your Business, she is the creator of Crack the Code to Get Promoted, a leadership and career advancement course for corporate professionals, as well as the author of the 3 health books and a wellness program. You can find out more about her at farnooshbrock.com. So here is my conversation with Farnoosh. Hi, Farnoosh. How are you today?
Hi, Sarah. I am good. So glad to be speaking to you today.
Yes, me too. I was so excited when you reached out to me about your book. I'm like, oh, somebody gets it. How great that you're writing this book. So as I kind of said in the intro, kind of an introduction to selling with integrity, because what I'm doing on the podcast, I have kind of this series of short muses where I talk about marketing with integrity. And who says marketing, the next step is selling. And so that's why I'm so excited to speak to you about selling with integrity. And then, when you sent me the book, I'm like, oh yeah, that's exactly. And we then realized we're doing quite a few things, in a similar way, because on my LinkedIn business, I call it, instead of social selling, I call it social serving.
Yes.
And then the title of your book is The Serving Mindset. So tell us all about your book.
Yes. So I'm so glad that the topic resonates with you, because when I started my business a few years ago, I had a lot of inner conflict about selling, the traditional approach to selling. And so I am lucky that I stumbled on people who were approaching it from this serving mindset, from a place of genuine service for the people that we are supposed to help without our self-serving agenda to sell, and yet with a way that we are still able to operate in business. We are still able to have clients and have profit. And so I was very skeptical at first, but I started to change my approach and my mindset first. And I was able to get a lot of good results. So I got more and more curious because it's fascinating to me that you can feel good about the whole process and attract high-paying clients who are happy to work with you. Whereas before, I was struggling to sell, which was the problem, to very much the wrong clients and at very underpriced packages and programs. So it changed my whole perspective. I can go into whichever direction you like, but in a summary, the book is for those of us who want to operate in their businesses without compromising their values of integrity, honesty. I am here to help. I am here to make a difference. And the selling piece can be aligned to those values. So I talk about how we can align them with the right mindset and then the right actions.
Right. I love everything you just said. And one word that stood out is this underpricing, or I refer to it as underselling, because I think a lot of my audience, as you know, they're all introverts, and a lot of us, to us, serving comes naturally, right? That's what we do. We listen and we, kind of empathize and we serve. Yes. So that's not really something that we have to be told. However, I'm sharing an email series where I write about my underselling burnout or overgiving burnout.
Yes.
Because it comes so naturally to us to give and undersell. It comes to a point where you're like, yeah, but this is not working for me either, because I'm giving, and then I'm frustrated because I'm not getting back. So you clearly understood that there's this gap between giving and still, selling and really running a business. So how did you approach this? What's missing? Where's the gap?
Yes. So I would like to make a few distinctions there, because you're absolutely right. We don't need to teach many of us, especially the introverted entrepreneur, and those are a lot of my clients, how to serve. It comes naturally. It is why you went into business for yourself.
Right.
But I think what was missing, both for me when I went into this overgiving mode, if you will, or for others, is that we need a framework. And the framework is where you are still giving, but you are doing it while you're still honoring your own boundaries for energy, for time, for sharing expertise. And that's where I think everything changes. So if you had absolute assurance that you could give 2 hours of your time to a qualified prospect, and a prospect is someone who's interested in your services. If you had absolute assurance you could do that with 2 hours of your time, and they wouldn't take advantage of you, and you wouldn't feel burned out, and you would have an outcome, whether that is a new client or trust, which would then turn into a new client or someone who's going to be a raving fan. If you had absolute assurance, you would feel a lot more comfortable, a lot more confident to show up in that conversation and to give, which you do so well, without feeling the fear of, I'm being taken advantage of, this is not working for me, and so on and so forth. So for me, that was the distinction, Sarah, where I realized if I have a framework, within that framework, I'm respecting what I need, but I am also giving, and I am also able to navigate that conversation when the boundaries have been reached to where it would move into a different direction, where I explore whether this prospect who has just taken 2 hours of my time because I wanted to give it, whether they are interested to move forward to a more formal capacity, for us to work together, for me to be of further service, etc.
Yeah, I think you're so right. And I think what is needed here is, boundaries, clearly, confidence, And being able to say no. One of my free downloads on my website is a guide on how to say no, because that is often for us introverts something that's difficult. We are very empathic and always want to help, but clearly in business, you cannot help everybody. And so that framework really becomes super important. I agree.
Sure. And can I comment on that? Because I think saying no is sometimes necessary, but if you knew that by saying no, you are actually serving the person, you may not be pleasing them in that moment. Okay, so there is another distinction between pleasing someone versus serving their highest interests. And the easiest example I use is with parenting, even though I don't have experience with it, but a lot of us do, where you may not please your child in that moment, but you know what you are doing for them is definitely in their best interest. And so if you knew that's what you are doing, by saying no to, say, another 2-3 hours of your time, and doing it in such a way that feels good to you and is compassionate but still firm, you might feel better about saying no. I think saying no, when we say that, we think we might be upsetting someone or coming across as selfish. And that's the misconception that makes it a little awkward.
Yeah, I agree to some point. I think we're still upsetting the person in the moment, but I think I'm referring to a book, Essentialism, my favorite business book called Essentialism by Greg McKeown.
Yes, I love that book.
You love that book, me too.
Yes.
So where he's saying no is uncomfortable in the moment, and people might be upset in the moment, but they'll respect you more.
Yes.
Later, because they're like, oh, I understand. And I respect her for having said no to this.
You're absolutely right.
Right.
It could be that they're not pleased in the moment.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Take me through the 5 mindsets that you mention in your book.
Sure. So I start with mindset because I believe that no matter what actions you take, if your thinking is still the same, in that you dislike selling, you feel uncomfortable with it, or marketing, whatever the case may be, it's really hard to change that. So I talk about 5 key mindsets. The first one is you are not selling, you are serving. So it's believing that when you show up, you are not selling, you are serving. Therefore, you are allowed to drop the sales agenda, which is at the back of your mind. I hope they buy. I hope I sell. We all have it. And you really show up from a genuine place of serving. And I find that mindset is like a reset. And we all need it from time to time. Like we may go into this mode of, oh, I hope they buy, or let me tell them more about what I do well. We need to catch ourselves and say, oh, I'm in selling mode. Let me go back to serving. But again, doing it within the framework that I talk about. And I can go into that with more detail if you like. But to answer your question, that there's 4 more mindsets. So the second one is I talk about identity, because a lot of us feel our identity will shift. Maybe we are a technical expert. We are really good at what we do, but we are not a salesperson. That's not an identity we wish to embody. And I talk about how you can embody all of the identities you need to operate a business, and it doesn't take away from your expertise, from your niche. It's really something that you need to do in order to operate a business, in order to show up for what needs to be done. And selling, or serving in this case, is a part of that. And I speak to a lot of my technical geek friends. I went to engineering school because they are a lot hung up on I am not a salesperson motto.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the mindset that we are addressing there, the limiting belief, if you will. Right. The third one is caring about our prospects. I use the word prospect because they haven't yet become our customer or our client. And showing it. Sometimes that means verbalizing it. And some of my introvert clients have a hard time verbalizing that, as in really showing that empathy. Sometimes they feel if they just go through the motions of asking the questions and exploring the problem, that means they show that they care. That may be enough in some cases. But I feel that when you really make sure your prospect understands you care about them, then things shift. You build a deeper level of trust. And sometimes you need to verbalize that. And I talk about examples of how you can do that in a way that feels comfortable and not fake, to be honest. But
That's
also,
a good one. Yeah, not
right?
fake, because that to us introverts is like, oh, I don't want to sound fake, right? That's really
Right. But if you ask if you don't care, don't say it.
Yeah.
But when somebody comes to you, you have to care in order to move forward for them to become your client. And if you do, it's to everybody's benefit to hear that and to say it in such a way that they understand it, because they may need to really understand that. I need to understand that as a client when I want to hire someone. So
sometimes I care so much that I will tell the client, look, I just don't think this is the right thing for you. And, this happens quite often because I'm now trying to work with a kind of a high level client. And so I tell them, look, you're just not there yet. Your website is not there, or I don't think you have your packages ready, or, all these things. And the prospects are always very happy, of course, that I honestly tell them.
Sure.
But to me, in the short term, that means, well, I didn't close that sale, right?
Yes. And the way I like to look at it, Sarah, is if you were serving them in that moment, which you absolutely were, you may not have an immediate reward of a closed client, but you have invested in the future. And I have so many examples of how people have come back later and invested so much more when they were ready to work with me, or they have referred someone, or they have written a testimonial, or they have, connections have happened. So you serving that person at that moment, that's my firm principle, that it will pay off.
Yeah, that's how I look at it too. Mm-hmm.
Right. So very good. Yes, being able to turn. I think that's actually the true test. If you can say no to a potential client because you are not the right person to serve them in a professional capacity at that time, you are definitely serving.
Right.
And at the same time, if you feel you really can help them, say it.
Right.
Say it. Be confident to really express that. Don't let them figure it out. Express that as well. So it goes both ways. Mm-hmm. Right. Did you want me to go through the rest of the mindsets?
Mindset number 4, right? We're at?
Yes, we're on mindset number 4, and that is charging appropriately for our services. Mm-hmm. And this was one of the most fascinating journeys I took when I was playing with the pricing and I call it investment. Right now, I am firmly confident that if someone comes to work with me and we go through the whole process and it's a good fit for both of us, it's an investment. It is not a cost or an expense or a price. So I never use those words because nobody wants those extra things in their business. They want to invest. And we have to be able to speak to that investment. How is it an investment? What is the return on that investment for your prospect? What are the outcomes you are helping them accomplish? And as you begin to understand that about yourself, you realize whether you are even charging appropriately and whether there is room to grow so that you reach the level where the investment level of working with you matches the value that you create in someone's business, career, life.
Right.
And that's where, I go into so much where it talks about shame around receiving money, our sense of self-worth. People won't pay for this, our decision that somebody won't pay for something, which is always false. You will be surprised how people are willing to pay for what if you just continue to serve in the framework that I teach in this book, or that you might offend them with high prices. So I address a lot of limiting beliefs and how we can overcome them in this mindset.
There's definitely a lot of stuff in there, right? There's
Yes.
Yeah. limiting
There is.
beliefs around money. Number one thing, not just for
Right.
introverts, I have to say here, not just for introverts, of course.
No. And you know what? It takes some time for us to really wrap our mind around that. But here is the thing. If you are not convinced that you are worth your current prices, much less the prices you might want to increase to, then you cannot make anyone feel good about it. Right? People want to have absolute confidence that you know what you're doing and you know what you're charging. So any doubt in that area would naturally sabotage you and them. So the money mindset is huge here. Mm-hmm. And then the last one is addressing voiced and unvoiced objections in the process. So this is where, just really briefly, it's basically when your prospect says, you know, Sarah, I love what I'm hearing. I'd love to work with you, but anything that follows that but, which is between you and a yes, is an objection. If they say what that is, they are voicing it. If you don't hear anything and yet you hang up and you never hear from them, they had unvoiced objections. And both of those are great areas of opportunity that I wish more of us would explore, because very few people dare go there.
Yeah, so. I'm looking forward to reading that chapter, that's for sure. There's one more thing that I was taught when I was working on this with a sales coach. She told me you have to get to a yes or a no on the call. Okay. And so now this for introverts is the worst. Because why? Because we ourselves would never want to be pressured into something. We'd always want to think about it, right? We want to go over the details. It's not that we're not ready to invest. It's just that we need to think it over. We don't think on our feet. We want to take time to, reflect. And so that, advice just really did not work with me. And so what I do now is, if they're immediately saying, yes, let's do this, then great. If they're saying, I need to think about it, I say, okay, when can we talk about it again? So that's kind of the in-between solution that I found, rather than saying, why do you need to think about it? Do you need credit? And, I can help you find solutions, and all these kind of urgency things that people tell you to do, which just don't work for introverts, I think.
No. And I mean, with all respect to your sales coach, and it may work with some personalities, I think that pressuring someone to buy is just not serving them. However, I do agree that we need to come to some agreement. Mm-hmm. So you never want to leave the call saying, I need to think about it. Okay, when are you going to let me know? When I've finished thinking about it, or in a few days. That's vague. Mm-hmm. That's not fair to you after having invested time there. I would say I teach my clients to come to agreements. Right. So great. I respect that you need to think about it, Sarah. When can we regroup with your decision?
Yeah, exactly. Fix a time and date and schedule a call to follow up.
Absolutely, because you respect their time as well as they hopefully respect yours, and you want to make sure to help them, whether it's the right decision for them, whether it's a yes or a no, to come to a decision. And I think if you have that clear communication, even and especially when it's a no, you might be surprised at how that person will come back to you, because you continued to serve them. And helping people arrive at decisions about investments is actually a great service, because most of us don't know what we're doing. So if someone is a no as an opportunity to walk yourself through that process and continue to serve them and watch how the relationship you build, because you're helping them arrive at a decision that's right for them, how that will pay off down the road.
Wonderful. Wow, we can't wait until this book is out. Or is it out now in the meantime?
Yes, it's already out.
Oh, it's
November
out.
6th.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, ma'am. It came out November 6th, so it is out on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all major bookstores. In the U.S., I know that you're in Switzerland. I hope that they start carrying it in other countries as well, but definitely on Amazon.
Wonderful. Okay, so make sure you check out the serving mindset. And is it also available on your site, or just mention your site anyway? Mm-hmm.
Yes, if you go to farnooshbrock.com/book, I have information about all the places you can get it. So that should be helpful.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for serving my audience with your book.
Really my pleasure.
And let's stay in touch, Farnoosh, okay?
My pleasure. Thank you, Sarah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. After that conversation with Farnoosh, I immediately read her book, and I'm referring to it often, and it's also in the resource list of the Gentle Marketing Revolution program. And you can actually access that list under sarahsanacroce.com/books. And so this is my list of resources that I use to research and create the Gentle Marketing Revolution program. So again, sarahsanacroce.com/books. So yes, if you struggle with selling, I really recommend Farnoosh's book, The Serving Mindset. I also recommend letting go of the shoulds, getting rid of the templates. And that's what I did. I just kind of put that into my drawer and never take it out again. And using your intuition and integrity when it comes to these sales conversations. So I hope you'll take that to heart and start taking that serving approach when it comes to selling your services. So that's it for this episode of the Gentle Business Revolution. You can find the show notes of this episode at sarahsantacroce.com GBR6. And please also check out Farnoosh's website at farnooshbrock.com. Farnoosh has a difficult name to spell, just like my own, so please check the show notes at sarahsanacroce.com/GBR6, where you'll find all the clickable links of her website and other resources we mentioned. I cannot wait to bring next week's episode to you. I had a chance to talk to Chris Brogan, which really I've been following ever since my early beginnings in this online jungle. So I would say probably 2010. And I was so delighted to have him share a very similar view on the current marketing paradigm. And I asked him also about the work he's doing with bigger companies, but also what he suggests us entrepreneurs do differently going forward. So make sure you tune in again next week when I talk to Chris Brogan about disrupting the current marketing paradigm. I hope you'll join me on this journey to a kinder marketing paradigm. And please invite your friends to join us by sharing this podcast or the Gentle Business Manifesto with them. Both can be found at thegentlebusinessrevolution.com. Let's be the change we want to see in the world. See you again next week.